SEL season continues here, and now we've got the teams that have both managed to get out of the LCQ flawlessly and some of those that get out with a final loss right there towards the end. And one of those, and maybe both of those, are coming true for this matchup here on stream today. My name's Infernos, joined here by Mick, aka Dallas, and today it's Oklahoma facing off against the underdog who's upset every team to this point, Kentucky Blue.
Yeah, definitely a match of upsets, or at least an upsetting match for either one of these teams here today. Obviously, the playoffs being the final shebang when it comes around to the season, but better yet, even more so when you look at the kind of two teams we're dealing with. The ones who had the reigns to the grand finalists of last year on land, and even now Kentucky, who's managed to upset team after team after team just to even get to this point in the first place. There's a lot of expectations for either side here. I think, honestly, whenever you talk about the entire matchup in itself, I mean, everybody's probably be looking at Oklahoma more than likely knowing their history. But me, I'm probably going to keep my eyes on Kentucky because what's better than a team that feels like they have everything to play for? A team that feels like they have nothing to play for and they're just happy to be here.
Yeah, Kentucky went off against the UCF Knights Academy in the last round. They upset them. I believe it was 2-1 for that scoreline. And then they
Right.
had also taken down, I believe, the number 2 seeded team of Florida Orange in the very first round of our LCQ. That's unbelievable. That's a team that was expected to get all the way through very easily. And in the very first round,
Yeah.
were hit a huge knock on side of their head and knocked out of L contention. Oklahoma, they beat GMU Academy. That was expected. Losing to Auburn, really close game we had last week on stream. You're going, this is all right. They still get to move on, but it's Kentucky Blue having to do that to Florida. And now UCF Knights Academy, who have to step in on a lower seeding and face Clemson, of all things, coming into this round. Really darn difficult game for those. Kentucky has put a lot of teams in uncomfortable or bad spots, and it looks like they want to do the same thing for here, right into Oklahoma's lap. We'll have to see what maps we go into, as it is a full BO3. Let's see how we get in and how we get down. I'm really excited to see where we're heading to. And of course, sunsets. The
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, as a first. I mean, kind of to be expected considering not really too much depending on the meta. I mean, a lot of teams do like to go ahead and introduce that sunset into the series, but seeing this can be first here on the board, I do like to see that Kentucky is whipping that out first. Seeing obviously even in last week when we saw Oklahoma kind of going ahead, ripping that thing out, seeing what they could do with it a little bit. I'm concerned a little bit to see Oklahoma of what they can really bring here once more because if last week is anything to go by, they didn't really seem all that confident in themselves as a squad, just generally speaking. When you look at their history and what they really accomplished over the course of the season, they looked strong. They looked right around there towards the middle of the board, at least in terms of the upper echelon. But even then, when you actually look at the matchups, when you look at what they were doing last week, it didn't seem like they had all gears turned. It didn't seem like all the horses were being powered there. So I think, quite frankly, coming into this week, I mean, if they still had that same kind of warm up area of, say, maybe 9 to 11 rounds before they really start get rolling, even then, if they don't find themselves the comfort and leisure of a first round and the secondary after that, which last week didn't even really apply for the first two maps being a 1-1 to get going, it's going to be a little bit awkward to say for the rest of the series, considering that Kentucky, I'm ecstatic to see what their structure looks like and really how they've been toppling these greater teams going into this.
Yeah, it's totally, our bad at the SL not knowing enough about Kentucky Blue, right? We haven't had the luxury of being able to see them. And because of that, they're this giant unknown factor. And they're facing up against a team that is very well known, 2 times on
Right.
progress for Oklahoma. And we have a lot of history with them, but that also shows us very easily some of the gaps that they've had. They're a good team, but sometimes they just are not having the horses there. Like you say, they're just lacking that little bit of extra assistance, the gear to get some more torque and some of those strategies they have in their back pockets. In Kentucky, the fact that they've taken down those bigger teams, they're going to have much less gears missing in their overall machinery. We're going to see those machinations can truly be able to take down a team as tested, as much history as this Oklahoma roster does have. As we see our agent selections start to get locked in and underway, I won't even begin, Dallas, to start to estimate what that name is for Kentucky Blue. We're just going to say whatever agent they have. Maybe I pull up my phone and take a picture of it and try to figure out what that means, but not a clue. We probably should ask beforehand what their in-game names.
I guarantee you on League OS that is not the circumstance.
All right, I'm pulling out my phone.
Live, yeah, go ahead, live. Figure that thing out because there's no shot we're getting that on League OS. And if we do, then I'll eat my shoe. But as it stands right now, I mean, looking at the compositions, at least in terms of agent selection, not even names, just looking at the characters we're going to be dealing with, it's nothing really too crazy. I am a little bit surprised to be seeing the Faye being whipped out from Blink there specifically, at least a little bit different compared to what we're used to seeing. I mean, the Breach obviously feels like a bit of a necessity, but the Gecko feels like it clears corner so much more effectively. You have that secondary bomb plant, and even more so, you have to look at the potential of what that kit can bring in the Thresh and being able to not only clear a site in terms of getting on or in terms of a retake, but also going ahead and covering those kind of corners and avenues that you're not typically wanting to check and throw a body at the problem for. So seeing that we're going to be opting in for the side of Kentucky, I am going to be keeping my eyes on Blink. Not really just in the frag department, because, I mean, that could obviously carry its own weight. But I want to see what that utility really starts to bring into the bigger scale of what we're going to be dealing with, because this is a team that chose this map, so they have to feel really confident to be opening up the entire series with that.
Yeah, this is going to be well, it's going to be a decision that could ultimately favor you if it works really well. It could be something that kind of gets you thrown into the back pocket. Oklahoma, though, well-versed with this map, have a agent selection that shows that they're playing the standard. They won't have any of the woes that come with some sort of tertiary pick or some sidewinder idea. They just want to play straight to their strengths and try to find how Kentucky Blue play this out. As Kentucky Blue look in this very first round to start playing off towards the A side, but it may be a fairly standard mid-side push instead. A spike has been left off towards that A main wall, and the whole team is ready to start to send themselves out through inner hall. Maybe hope for an early firefight, as Quat is really darn close to IBM. They're trying to see if they can get that early intel or early frag, but it does not go Qua's way. And the Breach util trying to make space for Erase to step forward, but it's not going to matter. IBM pays the price. There goes the Breach. Quad and Blink get one more on top, and it's Kentucky Blues attack just finding frag after frag, and Oklahoma's middle presence is entirely vacated, leaving only Suj.
Yeah, an outstanding start here from Kentucky. I mean, considering they like to push up the middle of the map, and I like seeing that stressor early. I like seeing when teams want to flex themselves up the middle, see if that's even an avenue that's covered. And sure, on the pistol round, it's a bit of a wild card, considering the defaults aren't really all there, but seeing what they've already accomplished and make sure they say, look, let's go ahead, even if we don't find out anything, we still get all this free space for round number one to kind of lap around into another space in the map, or we can go ahead and just show that, hey, we win these fights outright, just like they've already done. Finding the majority of the players, or better yet, off right on the get-go, and even then transferring all the momentum somewhere else to the map that doesn't have nearly as easy of an access to the middle of the map to get back over to, because at A, you have to go all the way around or spawn on either side. That it makes it a much easier situation for them to hold things down, because it mitigates a lot of the options that actually approach the site on the retake, and especially on a pistol round and a cypher of all people. You just don't have much work to do.
Round one obviously successful for Kentucky Blue, and it wasn't really any site that was up for contention, bar the final. They're just happy with the result in the 4 frags they got down through mid. They're going to completely ignore it stepping into round 2. Obviously better weapons in their hands. They don't have to play to the longer sight lines of that mid. They could leave the Guardians back inside B main, start to stabilize the B push, and as they get both those smokes down and some utility back the other way towards back of sight like a Paranoia, they can easily take that site and start to put the spike down and guarantee where they'd like to play this. As with a Fade, they don't really need to worry about the Gecko wingman plant in between the new cubby under tower. They'll place it down long, far back across, where a lot of their utility can just be constantly dumped out there. The Fade can try to go for any sort of, I don't know, a tether to try to wrap them in, a haunt easily up over the top as long as they play it smart inside of B main. But for the weaknesses of one man, this new site layout can really hurt teams. And it's not a problem for Kentucky Blue. That B main is devastating for Oklahoma.
I mean, on a round when you don't have much to work with, yes, very much so. But I mean, even then, looking at all these players allocated towards main, on a round when you have the majority of your kit, everybody's going to have stuff to work with on the side of Oklahoma. That's going to be an absolute death trap. And I'm going to need to see Kentucky to have a little bit more comfortability when it actually comes around to maneuvering on site and holding the retakes there. Because considering what you're dealing with in main anymore, you don't have that wall. It looked like old tendencies kind of kicking in a little bit. And while it does work because teams haven't gotten acclimated to these new reworks just yet, I feel on the competitive stage too much, I do feel like it's going to be something that Oklahoma is going to make the adjustment for, knowing that they went up against Auburn in the same exact kind of circumstance last week, and they really punished them for it. So I'm hoping to see that maybe here soon we get some adjustments, we get some switch arounds, we get some little tweaks into the gameplay to see what really Kentucky can cook up. But as it stands right now, a bit of a long-range encounter up the middle of the map. I talked about it earlier. They were just kind of flexing things there. And as you can already tell, Oklahoma are just giving that up. They don't want to go ahead and fight that. They don't want to lose any possible players because they know that Spectre can kind of squeak itself through that alley and getting that close to the ballistics that you want to be seeing. And then everybody else just making sure to hold their station.
Yugen or KJR on League OS. That's the two players that I think are missing right now for this Kentucky Blue roster on League OS. So, again, until we get full confirmation, I'm just going to continue to say breach. The 2 rounds in, you have the victory. The weapons continue to stay for round 1. Or sorry, for round 2. You got to play really smart for these initial engagements. And this passivity was the right idea from Kentucky Blue, but and was playing very upfront for Oklahoma. Just watching that A main entrance, was able to execute that first blood very successfully. And now their teammate Kasumi from top mid is able to do the exact same thing. Now Kentucky Blue in a major back burner. Only 3 players remaining. Our cover is placed off towards Hall, all 3 within it. And Min has help from the covering fire back from defender's spawn, but no one is there to hold again. Min will only be able to isolate that single frag before they inevitably fall and get the chance for Kentucky Blue to now go for the plant. Here comes the rupture. Will they get out from back behind box? They will. Square not so good. IBM alone, maybe a chance for one more, but it's stripped away as soon as their life is forfeited, and Oklahoma will take our round 3.
Yeah, even seeing, Kentucky have the Vandal, having a couple Guardians to work with. Is considering that, seeing what they're working with. And whenever Oklahoma gets a full kit, this team becomes completely different. So, obviously, this isn't even much of a warm-up round for them because they do end up finding it, but they haven't encountered the entire full force of Kentucky just yet to really see what they're working with. And as we do see the buys coming through, we're still not going to be seeing that. Men not having the money to really buy everything in the world, and even then, Clever being in that same exact kind of page, it's going to be a difficult buy here, but you still are going to have the majority of the team on pace, understanding what they need to be doing here, and they're going to see what really they can work with. They have a neural theft on the field, a very early one at that as well. And honestly, I think looking to see what Kentucky can do in this kind of situation, full buys, the full economy kind of playing out for them, I'm curious, to say the least, of what they're really going to manage, because quite frankly, this B push, it's not going to work out too well for them. Again, considering the kind of economy and no one even in better yet the retake that would go underway. But even in right now, when you look at the A push, you're going for those close quarter ballistics once more. These players that couldn't buy in Oklahoma, this is the one place I think they honestly have a shot to find some kills.
They've already heavily stacked here. This is the perfect opportunity, maybe for Clever, but the Sheriff shot can't connect. That's why you've got Su, Kasumi, and Kwa watching tertiary angles. They each find a kill. Now losing Min makes this a tie 2v2, but Blake can't escape from the onslaught of fire from Kasumi's rifle. Only Guan remaining. Showstopper out. This is sent too far to the wide. Juan's able to back away, save their life. And now is a chance to collect that spike, but Kasumi needs to re-engage. Can't hit the head. The brim now missing for the Cypher, but it won't matter. Kasumi gets 3 kills in round 4, guaranteeing Oklahoma tie this series now 2-2.
Yeah, just a huge situation there for, Huan to go ahead and look for something to work with, looking for a little bit of more leniency, saying that understandably so, you find the first blood, you get to tell all the signs that that the second is completely capable to be taken, but it just doesn't really happen there. Unfortunately, seeing that Kentucky, keeping things tight, keeping things close, considering what happened there, Oklahoma still having the leg up. Not only obviously in winning the round, but knowing that they didn't have to invest as much money to even get there in the first place, and the player that bought for somebody else ends up carrying a gun to the next round.
They'll move on for Kentucky Blue after a big loss like that. They won't have the weapons to contend in round 5. So they'll have to play a lot slower, and the moment they get any sort of information or maybe a lucky early frag or even a loss, they'll have to choose to extend into sight and punish the Oklahoma defense that may be caught on their heels. Worry about more so the Cypher trapped over there towards short. Su just securely in behind a wall, but the Prowler can make problems for them. 31 HP, the paint shell from Clyde secures that position and secures a rifle now for Kentucky Blue as KJR. Dangerous spot to try to fight this, but they want another option for a rifle, and the team's trying to commit. Everyone's swinging. Frags are going in favor of Kentucky Blue, and Oklahoma's being punished for missing their shots.
Yeah, this is not really the best situation here for the likes of Oklahoma. Don't think they're being rough so far. It's all good, but you got men there to clean it up the rest. With the Vandal in hand, the fully auto compared to all these players just single shotting with that Sheriff, trying to get the sling off. It's just not going to really work there, which is not really something you want to be seeing after such an outstanding start from him. Clearing out house so effectively in a 3v1 is that scenario where either sure you could go for the 1 and 1 and 1, but the problem is you find situations where usually it works, but Then you have situations like this where it's just you guys are falling like dominoes, one by one, feeding to the beast and give them that ultimate to play with.
Kentucky Blue so close to having it, and just having it stripped away in the final few moments there, Dallas, it's got to be an insufferable experience to have to deal with. But they came in with a thrift. He came in on an eco. The Sheriff's only a single stinger to the team, just a pain shell to try to get them that close and drop the eco of Oklahoma even further. They lose out on this round. Both sides are going to be in a really tumultuous position in terms of being able to buy up going into round 7. But Oklahoma have correctly positioned themselves. No longer will they have Such sitting over behind brick wall on that A short side. They maybe are playing a whole lot more passive with good reasoning, knowing that Kentucky Blue like to punish these players that are in, well, doomed to die positions.
Off your feet!
They're leaving a whole lot of that site up for free as they'll move on towards mid, ready to take market and send out the Rolling Thunder. And now a Nightfall. Huge site, huge objective utility of ults from Kentucky Blue, but it hasn't yet given them a kill. Kwame and Kasumi are single-handedly devastating every single player for Kentucky Blue, despite the usage of these ults.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at what Oklahoma is doing here. I mean, sure, the slaughter is a big thing, but I mean, also looking at what they're doing. A couple of their players are having these isolated incidents of just absolutely going on tears, Min and Kasumi specifically. And because those two kind of being your star players, sure, having a duelist on the defense isn't really the most spectacular thing because, I mean, we don't typically see that. Knowing what Kasumi's been doing, even especially last week, was relatively idle, I want to say, on this map, if I do so remember correctly. I mean, it was on map number 1 when you saw him finally lighting up, map number 2 as well, but map number 3 felt relatively idle. Here on this map specifically right here, right now, though, definitely waking up right off the rip, ready to roll over and over and over again. The problem is, falls very, very early in a round like this, which does give you a little bit of hope, considering if you're looking at that kill streak.
He's trying to take a short angle up to the Vandal. Team will give them the spacing to do so. And Oklahoma, after a, well, ridiculously high amount of success and a big ult economy from Kentucky Blue, now have completely faltered. I just don't think the mid play is really panning out for Oklahoma. Maybe the agent selection for Kentucky Blue is just really darn strong with that fade being subbed in instead, having the extra initiator. Maybe it's just something to help out more directly on these firefight engagements and taking these shorter spaces in comparison to something like taking that side and getting like Spike down, where Gecko tends to thrive a whole lot more. Where Kwa doesn't really have the chance to do that thriving on this defensive side just yet, as a post plant hasn't really been an option for Oklahoma. We know how good Kwa can be on the attack, but the fragging hasn't always been there. They'll need to step up for Oklahoma.
Yeah, seeing what we're working with right now. I mean, Kentucky, obviously, I mean, both the rounds have gone down the middle with a bit of an equal kit to be working with. They've ended up winning those fights with flying colors. And I mean, even more so, it kind of puts that point now where Oklahoma, you can see the station and how they're going. You get the tripwire towards the backup middle, you get player station towards market, you're going for a double stack over there so you can find any of a trade and maybe a double swing at any players who are coming out of that side alley. Because Kentucky now during this run are going to understand that these guys are not going to be pushing this anymore. They don't want to lose players for essentially nothing. They want to let that tripwire do its job, and they just all want to hold their stations on site. Because when it comes out of the executions, at least on the A side, we see that they're not the greatest in the world. But over here on B, it could be a different story. But there's another factor being thrown in. Nobody's coming through market because that is not going to happen. Seeing all the allocation over there, seeing everything come right out main, I gotta see really how clean this looks and how many kills are really surmounted from.
Once again, Kentucky Blue, they want the B side, and to do so, they have to use ultimates to guarantee it. The showstopper comes out. Kasumi's able to quickly boost pack out of danger. Now the retake will come forward for Oklahoma, though they do have one player lost. Now two, as Qual's kind of flanked in from Juan, watching through mid. That market door is a bit too dangerous, and the ultimate that came back from the Rolling Thunder hasn't done enough for this Oklahoma defense. You can't clear KJR. You're gonna lose another duelist now in this firefight, and Clever's alone, and it's an easy clearance for a 4K. Kentucky Blue have proven that gunfight engagements are their specialty, and it's no surprise seeing this considering the teams they've upset to get to this stage.
Yeah, I mean, massive round for KJR. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, seeing what Juan was doing, especially kind of that flexibility around the map, playing the Cypher, understanding that I'm not going to do much in a post-plant scenario here. I'm just going to work anywhere else in the map, squeeze whatever kills I can out of this, surmount myself another neural theft to be working with. And honestly, so long as you guys can handle yourselves, and especially seeing how that round started, I think that's more than adjustable and more so than feasible, at least for the likes of what we're dealing with out of this team and seeing what they've accomplished thus far. So seeing going into a round like this where things are once again up they're equal, but the thing is, the one thing that isn't equal is these ultimates. You got to see the usage of these things, because Oklahoma, I'm not going to say they fall into the same kind of trap mentally of wanting to hold on to these ultimates for the next map. They go ahead and get them out relatively soon whenever they get access to them. But I'm just curious to see whether or not they go by the game plan, because the one thing, I don't remember for exactly who it was, but last week it just felt like there's a couple ultimates that get thrown out there. They're more specifically Hunter's Furies, but I mean, that happens all the time, not only here in the SCL, but just in collegiate in general, that they just don't really have the best isolated calls of throwing out those ultimates. They feel like they more so like to have game plans, actually throwing those things out for certain circumstances. But I mean, hey, with the From the Shadows, not too much you can do there. That's just pretty easy to throw out there, and on Narrow Theft, you're never going to complain because it'll come back pretty soon.
Defense for Oklahoma is not direct onto sight. They really respect the ability for Kentucky Blue to take objectives. Mentioned not having that gecko and instead having the fade makes clearing a whole lot easier in the long run for them, and it makes those approaches into sight, well, that much more difficult for Oklahoma to try to deal with defensively. Yeah, it's not as easy to plant, but everything else that's given to you, why don't you just let IBM step forward with a shrouded step and get a free attempt off with that spike? And while they do, Clever's been waiting off towards short. Uses a rupture in through the wall, secures a frag, and now it's the chance for Oklahoma to find some more. Kasumi down through the walkway, maybe a chance. Kasumi has to clear one and is able to do so. The trap wire was still placed on short. Kentucky never even approached that way, and because of it, they have no ability to step back to the site they had already claimed to that point.
Yeah, a bit of it awkward of an approach, I'll say. I mean, just consider what they did, not even touching an avenue of the approach on the side. I mean, obviously it worked for B because, I mean, that opening is so just open, to say the least. It's there, it's to be used, not only in terms of actually just getting the execution up, but also in terms of holding down in a post-plant silent kind of situation. But when you look at that other avenue, when you look at over on the A side, I mean, sure, it feels a little more open, but you have that Radiant Knight there, great, holding down half of the sight line. You have, once again, a level of elevation between, not even an expected one because it's not a staircase, it's just a straight jump. So, I mean, there's just so much where you have to clear to really go through the boxes have to be ticked, and why it's so much easier to push through that alleyway on the outer right side of the map. So, seeing what we're getting out of Oklahoma, obviously clean, concise rounds when it comes down to this retakes, nice shots. The only thing they just got to work on is not losing bodies early, and I think they've done a pretty good job of doing that, specifically by just not really flexing the middle of the map too much.
Yeah, the middle of the map's been just a graveyard for Oklahoma. If they continue to try to fight that early, it's a lost cause. And leaving Suj farther back, and you can see exactly where he is right now, leaving him around there, able to play into short on A, able to correctly watch if there's a rotator rush in from Kentucky, maybe cap a player or two off guard if they try to go through that market door through mid. Having that viability and that dual ability for Oklahoma is something that is starting to weigh on the shoulders of Kentucky Blue. We see how they failed in through markets. So they started avoiding that. They've been taking B main. They've been trying to take fights away from short. They want to take hallway and maybe forcing their hand to these big extremes, it feels like, on these offenses for Kentucky Blue is now why we're starting to see Oklahoma find more success in these rounds, a lot less close and desperate 1v1s or big miracles to come back, and maybe starting to see the rounds tally more in their favor as Kentucky Blue's patience for this round starts and stalls, it seems, at bottom mid before the team maybe wants to commit back over with IBM for this B-site take.
Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about this. I mean, obviously seeing the stacks, seeing the allocation towards the B site, that's where the problems have to be worked out. A, they feel like their retakes are more than sufficient. You only have players kind of delegated to the outer edges of it, looking to see when the approach comes. But here on B side, well, at least this round, you have a bit of a freebie. Ghoststopper already coming out, fighting and surmounting 2 kills. Huge stance there. You know Spikey's down. You see it right there towards the lobby. You're going to queue and say, okay, guys, go ahead and get the rotate. And even then, I'm curious to see whether or not Oklahoma even understands this. Do you get another player to lap all the way right back towards spawn because you understand that one's probably holding down that middle alley more times than not? Or you go ahead and look for the shots. Do you find the fights in the middle? Well, you find them, but you don't win them because KGR there able to clean things up once more.
Hey, Suj, where's your crosshair placement, buddy?
Clearing out.
2 players watching that angle is just...
10
it's insane that KGR's managed to strip both of their players away from that apex position. This is very difficult to try to realize now for Oklahoma, as this A site is now being correctly solidified. Kasumi wants to try to get the spike denier down, but desperate measures come forward, and not only does Kasumi fail to get the spike carrier, they just get 2 kills afterwards. You can defuse now with all the freedom in the world, and you can put Oklahoma now at a 2-round difference over the top of Kentucky Blue and guaranteeing even half at bare minimum.
Yeah, I mean, just great to see how they've really stabilized themselves, getting back into this thing. I mean, obviously had themselves not the greatest start, but I mean, losing those first 2 rounds, everything past that, though, has had their name written all over it. I mean, sure, you have a little bit of a strike there in terms of those 2 rounds later on, but considering you got 4 before that was even a consideration is something of its own right to go ahead and be bragging about. One of which was a 1v1 and could have been a loss, but seeing how things are going, they're not really stressing about it. Over and over and over again, you're seeing the Kasumi stepping up here. First map war, you're able to go ahead and light things off the rift, but I mean, seeing how things are going to go, you can only really hope as a Kentucky fan that things keep on rolling. That Kasumi keeps on doing exactly this and doesn't really seem to slow down anytime soon. As I said last week, I mean, Kasumi just kind of slowed down a little bit. You don't want this guy to go ahead and overburn himself early because, well, there's only so much voltage that can really go ahead and last for the course of the series. But you can get this thing over pretty quickly and keep this train rolling, find yourself an 8-4 and close out the map pretty quickly, then I think you'll have plenty of gas left in the tank.
I'm very impressed with Oklahoma this week. A lot of the problems we saw from them last week was just not really adapting in time and not forcing adaptability from Auburn's hand. I'm seeing the total opposite this week. It is a game of adaptability. That is Valorant. And we're seeing the forcing of Kentucky Blue to a different style that makes them uncomfortable right here, the very first map on Sunset. As the defense for Oklahoma has no problems cutting down every Kentucky Blue player on their approach. They try to go in through market once again, and that's where the problems start to arise. Blink and you'll miss it. No eyes in front of them. There's that paranoia short sight, and there goes your life. It is a 3-player left for Oklahoma. 3 rifles that can be held on to, and the eco will never be a problem now as they enter into the last round of the half.
Right. I mean, just looking so good to keep things rolling along. I mean, seeing they have it only guaranteeing themselves even, but also going ahead and capitalizing off the back of it. Not even really being too stressed with the utilization. I mean, sure, we saw the showstopper 2 rounds ago. Didn't really get too much off the back of that just yet. But I mean, clever having the Rolling Thunder coming into this round. I mean, I say that. It's still a tick off. But I mean, considering what you're working with, I mean, you look for a player, you see a half of the map. I mean, you find 1 kill possibly. Even then, better yet, I'm surprised they're not kind of pushing that B site, letting that guy take that and then just playing really free.
1 enemy remaining.
Free. But what is also free is the absolute fish barrel of players just sitting over there in A main for Kasumi to tear up.
What are you supposed to do, Kentucky Blue? Every winning strategy that you've had has now been completely usurped from Oklahoma. They realize you like to play short and they have strengths there, so they completely avoid it. And they realize, hey, they're pretty slow to set up for post plant. So let's turn round 9 into a blender, dash into side as quick as it can before you can set up a post plant. And now you have nothing. Market, you fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, it won't happen. We're going to start actively defending it mid. That's a problem in round 1. Let's never see it again. Oklahoma. Look at what Kentucky are bringing, and every time find a way to immediately fix the problems that it will never happen, even if it's not the next round or the round after that or 6 rounds later, for goodness sake. They have not found an answer. Kentucky has lost their winning racehorse. That was that speed. That was that gunfight that was always going their way in the early stages of this half. Now Oklahoma dominate the first half defensively and can start to take control on attack as they strike for the first blood.
And even then, I mean, the one who was at the reins of that first half was Kasumi, the player that isn't even really supposed to be turning up on the defense. Tradul is sure they're supposed to be great on retakes, but I mean, seeing the aggression, seeing it come out so early over towards these parts of the map where you see this player reflected for these kills, it's not much of a gamble. It's just kind of working out right. You just aren't really ready for it because it's not in the middle of the map. There has to be some kind of terminal point, some kind of threshold where you really just cut yourself off and say, look, we need to go ahead and play slow, let these extensions occur. But now that you're on the attacker side, I talk about it, surprise versus expectation. And, well, Oklahoma should know that Kentucky are expecting them just on one side of the map. It quite frankly doesn't matter because you know that you're going to be swinging, checking every single corner. You can think about this on a week-to-week basis. Think about it in the shower for hours on end because it's at that point where you're saying, as an attacking player, you're going to swing every single corner, and whether or not you're giving up your position, you are clearing, you are shooting. You don't care what happens so long as it occurs fast enough. When you're on that defense, when you're trying to whip out that surprise, there are so many more variables that has to go so right just to even give you a chance of maybe finding that first pick and squeaking that thing out if you're not playing for that retake. So see what Oklahoma's doing here. They get to do nothing but just speed up. They've already done that on the defense, but now on this half of the map, they get to just go ahead and put themselves into 12th gear. It doesn't even exist, but they're going to find it just to go ahead and drive this game home in the direction they want.
Oklahoma's reinvented the engine, it seems like. The power horse that is keeping this team alive is now churning forward through a very possible 10-4 split. Is expected to go forward in the second round of the second half with rifles in hand. Not many dangers in front of them as Kentucky Blue's initial defensive positioning up through top mid has gone completely eluded with a simple dizzy up over the top. And if you're paranoia back the other way, now they'll have to realize, where the heck are they heading to? How do we play this defensively? And Oklahoma, well, they spotted nothing. They see B-sides fairly free. They went on and send out the wingman. They can get 5 players with their guns up, ready to fight, and their guns are already at an advantage heading into this 14th round. What can Kentucky Blue at range? Well, their best chance may just be to go for this giant wraparound Dallas. That's where the trapwire gives all the information they need, and they can just wait things out and have 3 players watching that direction. Can the hunt give them intel? Can the shots connect? They're option out through the big, huge concuss. Blink able to find one, but the rest of the team not getting as lucky as Clever sprays them down with a Spectre. One more through main. The chance for Kasumi will not go unsung, and it's up to KGR and Clyde on site.
Last
2
player
versus
standing.
2. Mosh pit is out. KJR, you were so close, but Oklahoma will keep you off of that
Shut up and let me work.
and deny you of usurping on this 14th round.
I'm surprised you didn't even go for the stick there. I mean, go ahead, beta player, I understand. I mean, even then, just give it the chance. I don't think the time was there. I think we were on that same kind of philosophy, but it's at that 0.01 kind of situation where you never really quite know. But seeing how things are going here, I mean, Oklahoma, I mean, the round wasn't the greatest in the world for them, considering what they were dealing with. I mean, but taking that fight towards A main, you can kind of understand the level of aggression they want to present to Kentucky once more. They're in that second round situation. They want to know where these players are, and they just want to hound them down. They want to find those kills. They want to put them down and say, look, we're not going to give you the opportunity to go out on your own terms. We're not going to let you set up anything to work with. We're going to try to disrupt everything as fast as humanly possible, quite frankly. So see how things are going, getting things rolling early on. You already get the haunt to be thrown out over towards A main. That gets shot. Not too many players shoot it is the huge key there. Only a single classic shot to go off to let you know what could possibly be nearby. So it's good discipline here for Oklahoma for understanding that, okay, who has the responsibilities of what? Who knocks down this utility? What are we giving away? And while they want to go ahead and give themselves the world of a spike to be playing with, they don't want to give up too many positions because they have a bit of a default. They're finally flexing that middle of the map. They're finally seeing if they can extend themselves somewhere. And they're trying to go for that same exact thing in the Cypher, kind of playing somewhere else around the map, getting an advantage. And not even that, but also having his own little setup there to cut off anything else that wants to try to trespass.
Oklahoma is fairly smart. Not really testing the waters too much, seeing if utility gets sent back their way and realizing if nothing matters defensively for Kentucky Blue as long as all 5 players for Oklahoma are alive when they send themselves on into a site. Gunfights were a problem in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to say for Kentucky Blue. Oklahoma were not always coming away
30
lucky,
seconds
but
left.
they know that Kasumi has locked themselves in. They're going to start to win these gunfights more and more as they matriculate for Oklahoma's offense. That's a first blood now for Kasumi as Kentucky Blue have to retake the site with a player disadvantage. And Oklahoma primed now to take these closer gunfights, knowing the weapons they have in their pockets. That's why the spy cam's still up for 1. Lots of information. Everyone playing direct into sight. How do you send themselves through market successfully when Clever's just going to send something back your way? Player's stunned, but it doesn't keep 1 and blink off the kill feed. 2 now off for Oklahoma. And the shots are still clean from KJR. Clever, 1 more util dump. No chance further. Quaw finally finds themselves a good frag, and the Thrash was charged. But it's only a distraction. 2 versus 2. Dizzy is clear. Quaw with a chance to force Blake off, but the ghost from Clever. What is going on, Oklahoma? You take down the Giants of Kentucky in a round that conceivably should have been an easy retake for them.
Yeah, I mean, just not really the best situation for Kentucky there. I mean, they look so good going into that retake, seeing how things are going to work, and I mean, very reasonably so, taking a timeout on the back end of it. seeing what they had set up for him, seeing that it was kind of at that point where you're saying, look, this is closure here, guys. We can find ourselves another round. We can get back onto the board. We can carry over some guns. I mean, this is finally a bit of a wake-up moment for us, but Oklahoma just clutching things out with a gun, understanding that they have utility. They got players alive. They have ultimates, which is there to compensate for any lack of weaponry. I mean, it's just spaced out so well that honestly, the only thing Kentucky could have done is probably just stick more. I mean, really, they didn't touch the spike very much until the very end. They tried to filter out those players, but you just didn't give Oklahoma the respect that they've earned throughout this game so far to say that whether it's pistols or rifles, that spike being down, utility is all we realistically need.
Just having that to send back at you is so darn difficult to contend with. And Kentucky Blue, they had the advantage of the weapons. They knew they could take those gunfights, but why is a ghost of all things in Oklahoma's pocket with that utility the perfect end-all be-all in a round like that? You've given Oklahoma the ability now to knock at match point. And with such a quick first map like this, there's going to need to be some major mental switches from your roster stepping on over to map 2, because this cannot go unanswered. And Oklahoma, talk about a team that has proven themselves and maybe needs a little bit more to prove, taking down Kentucky, who's been on a tear through the competition. Maybe the perfect way to stamp your name back up into the books of SCL after you had not the best performance, you would say, in comparison to your last season's self. Maybe have something to live up to with bigger shoes.
Just looking for anything here early on for Oklahoma. Trying to see if they can find themselves maybe an early pick, a player extending out. Just any kind of mistake to manipulate right off the get-go. As the majority of the players are stationed near towards B main, they understand that, well, this is a round. This is good lookings here to get things rolling, but everything past this point, they're giving up the site. They're playing for the retake once more.
Spike
Well, I can
planted.
understand this and respect it. You got to really just kind of think and dish out what is Oklahoma working with, where are their players stationed. You still got a guy over towards that alleyway, just like you had one during that attacking half. They're going to lap around, but by the time the result meets itself, you've already knocked down 2 players, giving Oklahoma so much more leniency towards that side of the map. Sure, you don't have smokes anymore, but you got the Cypher on site. You have cages to play with. He can detonate those in
One enemy remaining.
And they've already pushed up into spawn, saying that we don't care what retake plans you may have. We already have the round.
Right there.
So, yeah, things are
Match
going here.
point.
Match point for
Keep doing
Oklahoma,
what
or
we're
at least
doing,
match
and we
point
got
to
it.
get things started off for the day, but on Kentucky's map, it's not really the best looking for them.
I mean, look at the way that post plant was set up perfectly for Oklahoma. They left Min in a doomed to die position, early information, the same spot that Juan was sitting in for Kentucky Blue in their post plant pushes to that B site. But Min gets away with 2 kills there, something that Juan was not ever capable of doing. And with that information that the whole team was there for Kentucky Blue, Oklahoma push from site to back of site, sweep through Boba, and take that market hallway. You get 2 more free kills, and this goes from a 3v5 or 3v4 to a 1v4. It's an impossibility, and Oklahoma are making it a job now, Dallas, to drive that nail into the coffin of Kentucky Blues defense. Showstopper for Kasumi, 2 kills, 1 piece of utility to do so, and a free, easy refrag from Oklahoma's push out through Boba. It's a 4 versus 2, and I don't know if this ultimate showstopper from Clyde's going to be enough to save graces if IBM just gets a free isolated fight going in favor of Oklahoma.
Win.
I mean, it's something, man. It's just crazy to see. I mean, understanding, seeing what they're working with. I mean, knowing that Oklahoma has found themselves such a solid start here, it's just outstanding. I mean, knowing that last week they just really struggled to really find anything on Bind with that being the first map. I mean, coming into something like this, though, it is just crazy to notice they can come out and just swing it right off the get-go. They found every successful round necessary. I mean, a 12-4 is nothing to scoff at. I mean, even in Kentucky, keeping a couple of those rounds relatively close, but as a whole, it felt like they had a lot to figure out because there were so many rounds where, I mean, you were putting in 1v1 situations or 3v1s, and even in those earlier stages, that they just faltered that they didn't need to. That could have given them so much breathing room when that second half inevitably came to run them over.
Yeah, this is something that is going to have to get fixed going into our second map. I highlighted that Oklahoma had problems previously. We've seen it throughout the season, and there were no notices of that at all in this map.
Right.
And Maybe it's a map strength. Maybe Oklahoma just really like this map. We've seen them on it before, but I don't think that's the case because we've seen those problems on this map. I think their working strategy and the things they've been evolving themselves on as a team just perfectly coincided with the weaknesses we're now seeing from Kentucky, which means Kentucky was not tested the same way in the games they had against UCF Knights Academy or against even Florida Orange, who was the second seed coming into the LCQ, which is a shocking thing to envision, but may actually be the case. Oklahoma evolved, they adapted much better, and even in between rounds, we're saying, hey, this was a problem. I don't see why we can't just do this to solve it, and it works. And where was the adaptation from Kentucky? Nowhere. And the scoreline is a proof of that. You're only able to squeak out 4 rounds of that first half, and that second half just turtles away from your fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, and once the second half rolled around, I mean, you had to create that cushion for yourself. I mean, letting the players go off that did. I mean, Kasumi specifically, and even then Min. I mean, Min is supposed to be controller, able to go ahead, frag across the board on either side of the field. But when you see Kasumi and what happened there, I mean, already getting things rolling on that starting half on the defense and then flipping over to attack, you're saying, all right, at this point, it's just kill this guy. And even then, KJR was your other kind of what was your bit of a counter, was your fragger that's supposed to be matching that. We saw plenty of highlights during that first half of just, successful, 4Ks or 3Ks just coming out for this guy. But the issue is it's just not enough to keep up. Even then on the scoreboard, didn't even keep up with Min at the end of the game. So seeing that Kasumi there, not really having the rest of your team here to coincide with you and kind of meet those same expectations, had those same highlights. Problem is, that's exactly what you're relying on for that second half to even have a shot in hell. So, I mean, seeing how things are going, you got a second map, you have an entire series to look forward to, but you also got a break to be looking forward to go ahead and get yourself kind of brought back into the realms of reality and figure out what's really going on here.
Yeah. We'll see you guys after this break. Well, obviously 13-4 is not the scoreline you're exactly hoping for there, Dallas. So Kentucky, how are you looking forward to your second map? I'm sure the answer has to be we're looking forward and hopefully past it to the third, because if you mess up here on Haven, then Oklahoma is going to send you out with not really any option given to you, because that first map scoreline is not going to show anything. And if it's just as ugly, this second map scoreline won't do it either. What do they have to change? And we'll have to see if they can do it.
We're just gonna have to see just more of the entire team, realistically. I mean, just looking at what they did, I didn't feel impressed by everybody on the squad to an equal, respectable level. I mean, seeing what they were doing, obviously KJR stepping up, carrying in the frag department. I mean, that's gonna go ahead and put you on the map immediately. But I mean, seeing what everybody else did, it wasn't exactly impressive. Not to be like, okay, I can see the impact from this player. I can see what this player's doing. I can see what this player's doing. It just felt more so of like, all right, stuff is being thrown out. And even then, I mean, there's a lot of situations. I think about them coming those B main fights all over and over again. We saw the stuns come through. We saw the paranoias being hit on players on Oklahoma's side. And even then, Kentucky was still like, we threw it all out there. Is anybody going to swing? And it's like, but I thought that was your job. And it's like, I thought it was your job. It's like, it's everybody's job. You know, you threw it out there. Let's at least just try, because swinging now is going to be a heck of a lot easier than it will in a couple seconds when all those status effects are gone. So see what we're bringing here? Not really anything too crazy on the side of Oklahoma. We saw this map last week as well. Not really the craziest thing in the world. Very strong. I will say that this map, it felt like there's a little bit more kind of mistakes to be noticed, but not really the biggest wild card I've ever seen. But one thing that could be a wild card, at least in terms of what I've seen recently, will be IBM on that Astra. If that ends up being brought, that could be a game changer. Kentucky really just has their strategies on point and really just has the execution that comes behind it, because especially if you have maybe even then an IGL on that position, you're just listening for comms. You're just looking to reciprocate information. You're just looking to create game plans and create those openings for the rest of your team. And Astra is honestly has no competition when it comes around to doing just that.
The thing with Astra is you basically have to be the IGL. The speed at which you need to start placing those constellations and actually using your utility alongside those is too fast for a player to do on a reaction and a call out from another player. You have to lead. You have to set those standards first. You have to be the player to drive that team forward. And that's going to be a big responsibility on the shoulder of any collegiate player if that's not specifically their role in a normal matchup or a normal lineup for an agent selection. So IBM, props to you. I like the idea, but we'll have to see if it's going to pan out for you. The thing I love for Oklahoma, though, is Clever was this, I won't even say unsung. They were very well sung in that last map. Hero for the side of Oklahoma. They out-breached breach utility almost 4 times to 1 in terms of impact and actual usage of it. And yeah, KGR is really darn good, but gunning-wise, KGR was always going to be the better player. But it's just, for a map like Haven, you want your duelist to be that end-all be-all fragger. You need them to be that end-all be-all fragger, because that utility player, that initiator, has to be ready to peek either side of an entry, because that B site double link retake is too darn dangerous. The utility for denial for plant there is too hard. C site, impossible to get down through C long, and even garage is 35 hallways and angles at which all of your breach utility just functions. Kentucky Blue, you have to stop Oklahoma from getting you down like this. The perfect way to do it is to find those kills, and a first blood's not a bad way to start it.
It most definitely is. And I mean, I'm curious to just see whether or not Clyde's going to opt in for that operator here on the defending side, and whether or not the gamble's going to be won on a consistent basis. Just knowing that over and over and over again, I feel like Clyde never really warmed up on that side or at all for anything realistically in that last map. And I mean, out of your duelists, consider what we were seeing Kasumi do on just such a consistent basis. It's just not going to look too hot. So I'm excited to see, obviously, speaking to Kasumi, what can be done in that ISO. We've seen it before. And, well, it's just fragging, really. Go ahead, put on the shield, charge anybody, and look for a couple kills. Because when you find that first, it's a domino effect afterwards.
Dude, now with the wrap. Maybe they're able to squeak something. We saw a cheeky play here 3 weeks ago, Dallas.
Left.
And while there's not 2 lined up here, it's still 1. It's an easy kill for Oklahoma's offense. Thomas at IBM still standing, and the Ghost is starting to rip away the lives of these Oklahoma offensives. 1 more now for Clyde. That's the 2 players coming against Qua, who, while not always having the best fragging, is able to play with their utility. But it doesn't matter. The guns are up for Kentucky Blue, and the frags go in their favor heavily with IBM's 3.
Yeah, Swift's first start, but I mean, even then, seeing what happens after this point is going to be nothing but up to the likes of Kentucky. Seeing those first 2 rounds go in their favor in the last map, it gave them a little bit of a cushion, but when you're dealing with only 4 rounds, at the end of the day, it's only half of your rounds. You can't let that happen. Seeing what's going to happen in the next round, obviously going to be buying things up. I'm curious to see what these purchases are going to be looking like with the Guardian coming out from AJR, and that makes total sense. Ivy with the Guardian as well. Let your players who feel good, put them in a situation to feel better. But Oklahoma, not really having much to work with. I'm surprised Kasumi, there it is, going ahead and whipping at that Sheriff, seeing if he can get in these close quarter combats, look for some easy ranges. I wouldn't be shocked to see if we see maybe a C push coming through, seeing the kind of default setup for towards the A side. But, I mean, make a transfer, see if things available, because you get that Outlaw to work with. So, I mean, those are going to be free kills in that long range of the C main.
Maybe your chance to strip back around in your favor, Oklahoma. These sites typically easy if you get there fast, but look at how active this defense is for Kentucky Blue. They've obviously got the Cypher off in a spot that's a little bit hard for Juan to stay alive, and a lot like we were talking in through mid just last map on Sunsets, but once the smoke goes down, it gives you a chance to kind of rotate away, and I'm not sure what Clyde was thinking there. Sorry, Suge was thinking there. But the shots are coming from inside the house, it feels. Blink's able to squeak away 1 kill, but they lost a teammate in the process. And it gives Oklahoma that player advantage they're hoping for, where they can climb it right back with IBM and KJR's Guardians ripping through the player of men, stepping up from short. And Clever swinging maybe a bit too soon. It's KJR down to 22 HP. It will stay there because Kasumi doesn't hit a shot in round 2.
Wow. And even then, I mean, seeing what the rest of the team did, just an absolute slaughter, easy shots to go off. And sure, we saw the exchange out of a singular player. I mean, to get things going on a blink. I mean, even then being 2 down, not hemorrhaging a single player after that. It's just absolute insanity here from Kentucky. If they can keep on playing like this and have these players just step up, trade not only out someone else, but even just themselves by the end of things, I mean, these rounds could just start flying by. But with the full guns out from Oklahoma, we saw this during the last map. They become a different beast to deal with. So we're going to see whether or not they can actually go ahead, carry that momentum, create something off of this opportunity, and really just get things going.
2-0 is exactly what you'd expect to see. We saw some differences in that the last few weeks, Dallas, but it's good to see it at least starts the same way in this one for map 2. And this is where we'll start to see Oklahoma find some success with all 5 Vandals coming into the board, but the Outlaw can still be dangerous. A simple classic shot would be able to strip away the rest of the HP on top of that hit. It is completely being avoided by Oklahoma. They don't want to try to take any sort of contention there, and this flank watch better be perfect. Trap wire up. And Blink will easily know where this is going to be. There is no surprise here. There is no ability to get past it. At least at just the right height, it will have to be shot. That will tell Oklahoma we need to take that side fast because we know there's players in from the wraparound. And there's nobody in whatsoever a defensive position for Kentucky Blue. They'll retake everyone now from A main as the spike is 100% confirmed.
Spike planted.
Getting that thing down, waiting on the retake. I mean, it's just nothing but a game of anticipation right now. But do they really know what's going on? I mean, the fact that they're not even looking back towards spawn is insane. I don't know if it's a prediction or if it's just eliminating your variables. No, I mean, it is nothing but just good looks here from Oklahoma. Assessing the situation, know what's being thrown at them, and even then, better yet, going ahead and cutting off one of the possible takes. Getting the shield to work without the ISO. We're not shooting bubble there towards the end, but I mean, you're not worried about it. Kasumi doesn't need it. Really going to clear out 3 players. The guns aren't there for Kentucky, and better yet, by the end of the round, neither are any of the bodies standing as well. So, I mean, a clean, swift first round to come out here from Oklahoma. Very good looks on them, but it's the first round. They had themselves an advantage in terms of the guns. Can they do it again? Well, time will only tell because, well, they don't have much to work with in terms of the ultimates after burning the ISO in the last one. But, I mean, getting 4 out of 7, basically getting that thing right back. It's just insanity.
It's a trickle effect. It's just a domino effect, right? For Kasumi, you get the frag in your domain expansion. You immediately get a second afterwards, third, fourth, 4 kills in a single round. Now you only need 3. Two ult orbs, a free ult orb, something. Help yourself out and get it right back. You can nearly have it by the end of this round. That could give Oklahoma another free isolated 1v1 where Kasumi is statistically not going to lose and have odds against a team like Kentucky Blue, who, while they played very well in the first half, it seems like the gunfights started to fall off in terms of that success. Min, though, who was pretty much having a reticle on their head the entirety of that initial peak by Clyde, still somehow comes out on top the moment that that dark cover dissipates, or sorry, the cloud dissipates. Now Kentucky Blue are down a player and have to start to move these players on this A site to a better spot, but you're not able to do so. Your Sova is trapped inside Cubby. Blink, and you may miss any chance for your life here, as any opportunity for vision now from a Sova back in return proves that Blink is holding close and says to Oklahoma, yeah, bye-bye. We'll test our chances over on C instead.
Can't really blame them. I mean, going ahead, getting things started off here. I mean, find themselves the first couple kills. They don't need to worry about the side. I mean, Kazumi is enough of a one-man army that everybody else is going to go ahead and flock over here to the A site just to try and create a little bit of a stall. But, I mean, it's all for nothing. Going ahead, tapping out, understanding this is not the time to do this. I cannot overextend. I may be able to 1v5, but I don't really want to go ahead and attempt it because, well, I got a team to help out.
Spike planted.
Already going ahead, setting things up, getting that C site, just completely prepped for a possible retake to come underway. It's still negotiable because, well, I don't know if Kentucky even really want to try this. They understand they're in a 3v5 situation. I mean, it is doable, don't get me wrong, but you got to look at the utility. You got to look at the available kinds of just plays available from the side of Kentucky. And with the Astro Wall being the only real kind of trump card you may have to work with, and even in losing another play in the process, it's just not going to look that great.
Especially with everyone coming from the same direction. If you're going to have any sort of attempted retake there, or maybe you're not really wanting to 100% commit, put a player inside garage and have a cutoff for them wrapping back in through C-Long to escape from the detonation of that spike, the inevitability of its detonation. Just seems like a misplay from Kentucky Blue there, but I love the play from Oklahoma, pushing themselves down through A-Long, even putting pressure through short. It's like having an APC and rolling it down the street, but then right at the very last bit, before you make that 90-degree turn, you take the turret off the top and you drop it there and hope that it gets shots off. That was Kasumi, and look what Kasumi does. Two more on top, hits the ultimate even darn closer, and if they push on to C-Long here and they take this pip, you've now got a free execution onto site with just a little bit of information to take the one player defending there off a gamble to take the site as a whole for free, and we saw how good that worked against Auburn just a few times when the rest of the team kind of let Kasumi down. I don't think that'll be a problem here against Kentucky.
Even though, I mean, see how often the ultimate comes out and sings Suge also back towards spawn, able to go ahead and manage too. I mean, you had full clearance to that site. You went ahead and checked that back corner to go ahead and get any escaping players, or they ended up getting caught, win or lost. That player's going to spawn right back in that same spot for a free guarantee kill, at least from the rest of the team. But you're not worried about trades anymore. One player's already done more than enough in terms of that regard. Able to go ahead and find two, and then seeing that 3v4. It's essentially kind of just what we were looking at in the round preceding this one. Or it just doesn't really happen. It's going to be a difficult situation, not only when you have the full guns, but even more difficult when you're working with awkward ones. Already to go ahead and close out two. Collide with the Sheriff. Able to go ahead and find with the Vandal. It's good looks, but it's going to look great. It's going to look perfect. And it's going to look like a successful round. With Kasumi's still alive, well, more than likely not.
Yeah, you may not get a 4K this round, and the ultimate may not have come as clutch as it did in round 3, but it's still plenty good. It puts you now up to 10-2. It sets up the play that maybe Kentucky can read into, that they really like to use that ultimate off towards C. We saw that 3 times for Oklahoma's offense in their game against Auburn. They heavily used Kasumi's kit to that C side to gain space, similar to how maybe a Neon would with the fast lane coming out from garage, or maybe a retake Neon in from C defender spawn. You know where the utility is 9 times out of 10 going to go, and that's how Kentucky has to view Kasumi. The problem is Oklahoma has learned. They've adapted, and I've seen much more variation in playstyle, much more variation in positioning throughout this last 2 maps, even this one that's only 5 rounds in from Kasumi, than we have in the last 2 games we've seen as a whole from Oklahoma in their previous matchups on stream.
Guys, really what can be managed here. I mean, in the 5v4, I mean, obviously still so much to really go in terms of game time, but I mean, Kentucky having 4 ultimates to play with, it's kind of the situation where you're saying finally we can create some equilibrium here. But do they ever get that chance is the real question. I mean, they have some prime position players, but they gotta get out of Scott. They gotta get out.
Give me a call.
Where is all the bad scenarios they can put themselves into, and they did exactly that. And also for all in that with the narrow theft, understand that there is only 50 seconds remaining on the clock. That this is going to be a full committal thing, because if you go to the BC, you can find that swap. But finding out they're going A, that lets you know that all the keys in the world going
I
to get
know
that thing down.
exactly.
I'm surprised we don't see an Astro Wall immediately be off there. But hey, I mean, whatever gets the job done. Found yourself one more, but wasn't Kentucky finding it? It's Oklahoma also getting that spike down as a result. So I mean, looking to just find more space to play off of. They are just carrying their influence throughout this map almost effortlessly.
Poor Blink. Stu just B-hopping up short and is able to find that kill afterwards. Unreal
Blocking
performance from them. As IBM will set up a multi-stage layer of smokes, trying to use it to hit
Last
deeper
player
into its side.
standing.
But Suj, who's been pretty locked in, says, yeah, round 6 is my proving grounds. 4-2 now Oklahoma. 3 kills for Suj forward, and that neural theft doesn't need as many pips as some other ultimates in the game, Dallas. It is already nearly half again. And I'd say they found more impact off theirs in that round, knowing exactly where the two players be coming from, one from Hall, one from Heaven, to secure it, than Kentucky Blue did, knowing they were just going to be pushing that A site, considering Blink couldn't find their frags.
Yeah, I mean, this is a terrifying side to look at for Kentucky players. I mean, seeing that not only Kasumi obviously just doing their thing, able to go ahead and find all the necessary frags and just kind of going ahead and carrying that same tear that we saw during the last map. But also, it's not even Min who's being that secondary fragger. It is your Cypher of all people, knowing that, okay, so long as the momentum carries, we not only have a solid carry to hold and trade off once we actually get to site, because Kasumi did the job, got on the site, and then you're in a post-lane scenario, so you're just playing defense at that point once again. But also, when you swap sides, go to the defense, your Cypher is just going to be an absolute tear. That is going to eliminate an entire site from a 3-site map. But Kasumi doing their job right now. You can talk about Suj all day, but when Kasumi clears his house so easily, it's over and over again when you're not really concerned what the rest of the round's going to look like.
Knocked up from over the top, maybe trying to clear out some utility, or maybe the chance for a player from Kentucky Blue swinging out. Man gets flashed. Perfect play there. It may not be enough. They have to get these sheriff shots to connect, and IBM now has space to move forward, collecting that rifle. Shots to Suj, 30 HP, rolling thunder. It's been stuck to half. You have to use the Hunter's Fury. This won't kill in time. And Kentucky Blue surviving off of a desperate rush forward with the sheriffs. Too much intent towards A-Link. They got swept up by ceilings instead.
Too much leaning into there. I mean, just thinking that players can kind of carry stuff. I mean, a Hunter's Fury, sure, it's a last-ditch resort, but I mean, when you have a player set up for it, you can shoot that thing preemptively. So long as you get a couple hits, so long as you line yourself up back towards spawn, maybe wrap around and find yourself in courtyard. I mean, you just got to really play the timing and make sure that there is enough assistance there, because when you look at those health pools from the rest of your team, you're saying this should be something that, you know, we kind of hurry up. You hear all the tags, you see all the shots, and even then, better yet, it was also a good call by Kentucky to get the most high health player onto the spike to take those 2 hits, while everybody else who is a single tap away is just looking to go ahead and play somewhere else and possibly just kind of create that ruse for Oklahoma to find some complacency in that situation. But already pushing up the middle of the map, right down the middle of the sea. There it is. Able to go ahead and find one to get things rolling. Kentucky get themselves a first blood again out of Min, who hasn't really had his nearly of a spectacular game as what we saw in the last one, but there's still plenty of time left.
That's the thing with Oklahoma. It feels like any player can step up at any map. It's always Kasumi. Right. Kasumi will nearly always be the top frag. They're fulfilling their role gorgeously, but everyone else somehow always comes out somewhere and has their moments to shine. Min last map, Suj, this one, has already tied the kills they had for the entirety of Sunset. We're just entering now round 8. Oklahoma's sort of endeavors off the C side have faltered. They don't really like the idea of it. They may be able to catch IBM off guard. They're going to Kasumi the flick right back up to restabilize. Could have a chance to use the ultimate here, but they will fall back. They don't like it too much. The team will step into B, and they may be able to steal a player. There it is, Kasumi now with a 1v1. But you picked a dangerous opponent. Can Clyde on this jet be able to secure the double tap offline? But now you've recharged it, and you have a chance to swing back through Garage if you wanted to. You don't have to stay inside Rabbit. You can rotate and play elsewhere, but KGR knows where they're gonna be. But Suj plays unexpectedly, and they'll let Kasumi roll right back through. It's Oklahoma to 5.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing what Oklahoma is performing, I mean, it is just not a tear just yet, because, I mean, it's still 5-3, but, I mean, enough to go ahead and at least force Kentucky's hand to get this timeout to be used fairly early in the half, I would say. I mean, obviously, you find yourself still plenty of rounds when nobody's reached that guaranteed 6 yet, which puts you in a perfect situation to say, how can we go ahead and put this team in a chokehold to prevent that in the first place? Because it's still up for taking. But, I mean, Kentucky with 3 ultimates, I mean, there's still a lot that has to be discussed in terms of game plan. Knowing what Oklahoma's been doing in this game thus far, you have to really break down how they are playing things out. You look at the pings, they like to go ahead and kind of look towards the C site. They want to just make sure to set Kasumi up for all these necessary frags to make these rounds so much easier. But Kentucky has to figure out really how to shut this guy down. That's the big hole that's missing, because realistically, the rest of the team, as you mentioned, they are more than capable of stepping up to the plate, finding those strings of kills over and over and over again, and being another highlight to coincide with their big dog on campus. But I mean, as it stands right now, you're not really sure who that is because Suge can't be accounted for. Suge is going to be that sentinel. It's going to be in the back of the map. It's going to be the last one on site. So how do you cut out the middleman? How do you cut out the rest of the team, forcing the hand of just those two independent players where you can overwhelm them? And I don't know if there really is an answer to that besides wrapping the map, maybe finding that flank, but it's a Cypher. He's still going to go ahead and watch his own back because he has all the information and all the utility to do so. You got to wait for these hits. You got to look for these executions. You got to cut these guys off. You got to wait for the right moment to strike, and you got to pray that they just don't catch you out.
We know how good Oklahoma is on Haven.
Spike down mid.
Problems can arise, and it's really the stake for the most of the rest of the team, except for Kasumi. When they faced Auburn just last week, 35-20 was Kasumi's final tally in an OT matchup, ending 14-12 in Auburn's favor. The rest of the team couldn't even get 19 kills as their top fragger besides Kasumi. It's an unreal performance from a single individual. We're seeing glimpses of that now from Oklahoma, but the rest of the team is starting to compromise and find successes elsewhere. Is this the difference of a team like Kentucky versus Auburn? No, I think it's once again another showcase of how Oklahoma has evolved as a program in just a simple 7 days to realize, hey, Haven should be ours. We played this map so darn well. We got Kasumi to rocket us forward. We cannot let it go to a third map where Kasumi starts to fall off and the scoreline gets really bad in the team's favor. It is a wraparound now potential for Kentucky. You do have Clyde, who has been playing very well. Now IBM's there to now set up this retake to kind of lead this roster forward. Juan may not be aware there's a player up in heaven, but the team is starting to find success into this wraparound. Clyde off to Suge. Man able to alleviate some of the dangers, but been spotted by Clyde, and Clyde's good for it. Qua, you're not playing so hard. You gotta start, but where's the shots from IBM? What's going on? Clyde saves the day in Oklahoma. Somehow, some way rely on their Sova to secure it.
And the Sova, who is arguably in the worst spot of all three of those players, going ahead and setting up that retake. The one who is going to be running into a double swing, having to adjust, praying on men to at least get that one to create a bit of breathing room towards that spawn side. And here we go, ring around the rosy. That's where you see IBM supposed to close things out, catch his player off by guard, and then even afterwards, Clyde just doesn't stand a chance. It's unfortunate situations like that for Kentucky where you got to win those rounds. That's the same thing that we witness over and over again in Sunset. That just gives you little to no breathing room when you see that that leniency doesn't exist in the second half, because things are only going to get worse from here. But Oklahoma not really having the best start in a round like this, limited some help, but still, you got players alive, you got all 5 bodies, and you got a very, very good mental running into this one, knowing that you got yourself a guaranteed even half.
Focusing. Talking about the difference, it feels like in the breaches we had. Clever was unreal with their utility, and where does that utility thrive the best?
Oh my God.
Defense. That's the case now for Oklahoma. If they are given too much of a lead and Kentucky Blue can't start to find things back their way, this could be disastrous. The spike will go down. All 5 for both teams still standing, and the heaven side may not be the best place to unfurl forward, as Oklahoma have taken this hallway very aggressively. I mean, Min's waiting with a paranoia. Maybe a chance for a landslide to get some sort of concuss off and maybe a fault line even form, but it wasn't mattering. Suge wraps around through B. The team falters at the doorstep into A, and Oklahoma have punched their ticket to a very wisely 7-3 with still more to go in this half as the stuns and utility force Kentucky to rotate out. They want none of the heat here left on A.
I mean, you really can't blame him. You don't know where Suge is. You're still stressed out about that. I mean, I don't even know why they're rotating too far off site, just because, I mean, you'd think this guy being 1 HP at this point, 1 shot for the entirety of the round. I mean, going for the 2 kills right through the middle of the map already is stressful enough, and even then, a bit of a wild card. But then you look at the follow-up and understand that what stops this guy from doing it again? I mean, there's just too many questions here from Kentucky's side of what are these Oklahoma players doing?
I should probably place some stars in the
while they got the playbook and they know what they're doing, we can tell you at least from surface value that they're winning, and that's all they really want to keep doing. They want to drive this thing home. Suge is stepping up in a huge manner. Men's now kind of caught up a little bit and found a little bit of air underneath the wings, but I mean, has yet to really just fly. But I mean, when you see the other 2 players, you're seeing what they're doing up there. So long as you're setting them up, I mean, you were doing more than enough to at least propel your team.
Suge very happy with how this is going, I'm sure, but being given the freedom to do that B wraparound, something that Auburn and Oklahoma both did so heavily last week,
down,
and it went unpunished. Kentucky did not do their VOD work, it seems, and starting to show.
One enemy
3 to
remaining.
7 is hard to come back from.
Revealing it.
When Blink's able to secure 3 kills seemingly for free, there is very much so a chance that Spike's been left off towards Hay and Kasumi, the final player standing. I would not want to be anyone left for Kentucky Blue, as it looks like it very well could be single 1v1s for the remainder of every single fight here. But the arrow drone, perfect from Blink. Not only are they finding frags this round, they're getting the information needed to secure Kasumi's position and very well possibly find themselves a chance to swing in tandem with a teammate as Kasumi wraps back through to attacker spawn. Maybe spots the shoulder of Blink. Now stuck inside a cubby. They'll rotate KGR on over and they'll have utility wisely placed correctly here as they'll send out the wall and pray that they'll think it goes that way. How does that shot go forward? Kasumi, chance again, but Blink wants 4 and will get it.
My heart skips a beat looking
Last
at this kind of
round in the
situation,
half.
and 1 kill is all
No
it
point
takes to
saving.
restore all the
Spend
hope
it
in the
all.
world, knowing that it is purely possible. I mean, seeing surmounting 1, you're saying, oh no, not
6 to
now.
7, 6, 7.
It's just at that point where again and again and again, but I mean here, being the first round finally off the back of what seemed like just an insane tear, just running right into the spawn of the attacker side. It was a good attempt by Oklahoma. A nice wild card to be thrown out. A nice little curveball that we haven't seen too often come out before. They actually commit to the aggression.
Camera
but
taken out.
how often can they really pull that?
My ult
How
is ready.
often will that really work? Is that a sustainable game?
Focusing.
No.
No
So,
distractions.
I mean, while it worked for a little bit here and there, they're
Making
going for the
cover.
repeat. They're going for that C execute. That worked so rightfully for them last time. And they know that they have full garage control because they keep on being given to them essentially for free every single round. So there you go. Once again, you're right back on site. Kasumi found a blind fire through his smoke. So, I mean, good looks once more.
They don't have the ability to reprop that double tap, but Kentucky Blue can maybe start to work their way. Kasumi against Clyde. You think the operator is a problem if you don't have the double tap, but it doesn't matter if they're full blind. Shots connect. Mid now one more, trying to avenge the fact that Kasumi was just felled back towards defender's spawn, but it may be too little too late. 2 versus 4 in effect for Kentucky Blue, and everyone is correctly positioned now for an Oklahoma post plant. Maybe an early Hunter's
player
Fury, but
standing.
that's why Min's playing the wraparound into the garage, and they'll just
Burn their
spray
lips.
through the Cypher cage. 8-4. Oklahoma
Switching
sweep
sides.
through with the same scoreline. The first half the same way they did Sunset.
Good on Koa also making the adjustments for what we saw in that last situation on Hunter's Fury. Going ahead, popping it a little bit preemptively, biding yourself that time, and giving yourself a bigger window to play with. I mean, not only in terms of just getting those shots off and getting that information, but I mean, at that point, you're at least wakening people up, making them soft for the rest of the team to get a shot off, or even if you're in a clutch scenario, you only really have to hit 1 shot on each person, or just 2. But whenever you're in a spray scenario, if you have the right players, if you got the right utility, you can easily do that. But, I mean, 8-4 half for Oklahoma. See what we did right there? I mean, Kentucky, not really the best situation for them. Sure, they don't want to be another 13-4 scenario, but if they let this half get out of control, there may just be very much a shot to happen.
Oh, an OU
Spike
start
down
off
mid.
on the right
One
foot.
enemy
4
remaining.
kills in
Show me
less
a target.
than 10 seconds of the start of this round. What more can you ask for? Well, the 5th, hopefully. Kasumi and Min rush forward to deal with the A-main player left alone. And Juan, yeah, you're feeling quite lonely. That's okay. You'll join the rest of the team in the afterlife and join them as you step on over to round 14 because 13 was a lost cause just 5 seconds in.
Yeah, I mean, just not good looks here. I mean, but it's still Kentucky have an ample chance. I mean, maybe not in this round, knowing that the second rounds don't usually go too hot. You got to have teams who kind of really think super scrappy and can find themselves just the kind of perfect places to really get things rolling. But it's Oklahoma who's really been at the helm of these thrifties more times than not. So, I mean, I'm curious to see really what they can do in this kind of round, whether or not they can hold the flawless, whether or not they can shut down all the necessary players, or if they're just going to kind of run at them. Kasumi does have a Vandal, so I'm not expecting nearly the same level of aggression. I just think that Kasumi's kind of playing for the retake. Min has one as well, though, and, well, it was met with players, so what are you going to do? You kind of have to pull the trigger. You have to take those fights, and what you do is success.
Clever, the util in from Link. This is the problem I was talking about where Oklahoma just have this beast that can start to really tear things forward.
Spike planted.
Kentucky Blue are finding unwarranted success on
Right
site.
there.
Blink has come alive in the last few rounds, it seems. They got that 4K just 3 rounds prior and now hoping for more. Has set themselves up for a possible 3K here. Qua has the flank from over through short, and Clever is
Last
dropping
player
out from heaven.
standing.
Blink setting up nicely to wait into the loving arms,
Weak.
but Clever's got their chance. Outlaw shot could be prepped. IBM misses the intent, but Blink won't miss with that Vandal. You were given it on sight, and it is punishing for Oklahoma's defensive structuring. Blink up to 11-11 and sending Kentucky up to 5.
I mean, that's your hero. That's your player that's giving you these chances to get back into this thing. I mean, sure, it's only a 4-round deficit, not the biggest thing in the world. It's definitely doable, but I mean, the hero can't save you from every single villain in the world. Everybody has to pitch in equally at that point. One man can't do it all. And while we do see Kasumi obviously being discussed in his own right, still, Kasumi has single-handedly won rounds over and over again. Min has now stepped up the board, has climbed still more so, now topping Suj. And Suj was there for the majority of the starting round. The rest of your team needs to go ahead and assist you with these steps. They need to make sure to kind of assist you in the job that needs to be done, and already they're doing that to some relative degree. Going ahead, sure, you have a body there inside the smoke, you get the damage done, you find a kill, but you have the utility there from other players to hopefully get, you know, something else off the back of it. Kentucky can't really get these trades, and they need to understand that. Still, Kasumi being there, you're more than happy with taking down the top fragger. There's still 3 remaining players, though. 1 and 2 of which actually are just kind of disgusting in their own right. But
Last player
Suj, at
standing.
least, they're knocking down top players one by one by one. And Wakoa being the last remaining with only 32 HP. Just not really much you can do.
Classic is a free gun, though. It can pull off miracles, but seemingly Qua outdid themselves previously in, I believe, round 7 to pull off that miracle for Oklahoma. They won't get a second opportunity to send it forward. That fault line, I'm just more amazed that Sue's able to get out of that in the first place, stuck in that corner. Sorry, Qua to get out of the first place, stuck in that corner. Right idea from Kentucky, and the execution is clean, and they're able to break that initial mold of Valorant and put Oklahoma in kind of a back burner spin, because what they're bringing now stepping into this round, yeah, they've all got rifles, but they didn't have enough money for full armor, and Kentucky Blue have everything they could possibly ask for, and maybe even more. They start to get a couple of these ult orbs, get these ultimates ready, and really start to pound the rock against Oklahoma, who haven't really had a chance of tallying them their way.
Right, I mean, just seeing what Kentucky managed in the last round. Good looks, but I mean, it's only going to get you so far. 3 rounds still separating you and Oklahoma from the shadows being the only thing really on the board that could look relatively scary. But even then, you don't have to use it very often as an omen. Instead, your gun's going to do more damage than anything else. I'm going to go ahead and close out 2 kills. Kasumi trying to be there for the assistance doesn't even get a chance to really find a shot on the player, and makes it a really quick 3v3. But what players are knocked out, you may wonder? Well, the top 2 shooters of Oklahoma and, well, 2 guys on Kentucky's side. So, I mean, is that thing of really who's winning in this situation? It's most definitely going to be a situation for Kentucky here to close out unless Suj can once again wake up.
Suj is in a very sneaky spot, too. Has not been spotted. Maybe IBM checks platform correctly, and it will.
Player standing.
Doesn't matter. Refrag
Spike
instantly
down,
back.
C.
Kentucky Blue are willing to give up an inch to take back a mile. They already have that player advantage, and it's just a game of
30 seconds
refrags
left.
now for them. They don't have full intel about where Qua's going to be coming from, but this
there it is.
shock dart will tell you everything you need to know.
Deploying
Kentucky
drone.
Blue will send every player away from sight and start to hunt in these awkward angles to force you to play into this. But Spike Plant is very obviously against Qua, and they have to step to the opposing side of that Radiant stack. And Juan is not even giving them intent off towards Garage Window. They are playing smart, they're playing collected, and Blink will get hunting on the play now as Qua is tapped by that spy cam and has really no chance to try to find a frag, because it's not a spy cam, it's an owl drone. It's not an owl drone, it'll be a recon bolt or a shock dart. There's just too much active information there for Kentucky, and Qua wisens up and says, I'm out of this one.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do is just kind of ape it and then just stick it. But, I mean, there's too much risk associated with that. You didn't really ever clear garage, essentially. You didn't kind of pass through to know if players were back there. Even more so, somebody probably would have cleared that coming out, and they kind of would have found that fight initially. But it was the right play, knowing the 2 information agents on the side of Kentucky were in that situation. They just want to go ahead and play with just that. Work the information, get the player to a situation where they just genuinely cannot fight back because you have constant recon on them, and they're just going to go ahead and get out of dodge because, I mean, it's just not worth trouble. Yeah, things are going for a
Deploying drone.
round number 17. I think that we're going to be looking pretty good here for Kentucky because, once again, I mean, they have now the advantage. We haven't seen this in a pretty long while, where Oklahoma's in a situation where they have to pull off a thrifty. It's the last time they had to do this in Sunset. They managed to do it. But here on Haven, we haven't really seen them in this situation yet.
Standing ahead.
You know what, Oklahoma, the last thing they want is to go into another OT on Haven where they inevitably lost to Auburn.
Spike drop.
But the way things are moving, Kentucky are moving different. And it's giving them that bit of an edge, especially in an equal round like this, to separate that gap and make it from a simple 9-7 to a possible 1-round disparity being 9 and 8. They already have 3 kills to their name. The fourth one on the horizon. There's IBM, very wary of Suja's wraparound. And Kasumi, who's seen some crazy plays, but this would be the craziest of them all. An ace now in front of them. And they don't want to give up the frag. Maybe die to spike, maybe punish players who go in for it. But KGR is not one to typically be punished. They were out of their mind on map 1. And they're letting the team step up for map 2.
Looking for anything here. Good sight so far, at least, for what Kentucky's managed to bring back in terms of this game. I mean, only being a 1-round difference. Oklahoma obviously being up for the majority of it, but I mean, now finally having to really slow things down and say what's going on this defensive side. Because, I mean, things, while you could say they're not looking hot, they're not looking cool either. I mean, they're not in a situation where they look bad or they look amazing. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're typically used to looking them at an amazing perspective, considering what we've seen in this series so far. But going forward now, I mean, the 3 ultimates, they're just trying to figure out what is a game plan. What's something that could slow these guys down? What's something that could cut them off? What kind of setup could we get to disrupt an execution? Because Kentucky, they don't really seem to be defaulting to the same exact level that we saw Oklahoma earlier. We don't see a singular player Trojan horsing over to A, able to kind of go ahead and completely carry out a couple kills for free. We don't see players squeezing through the B area as the A retake comes around, where you just have that confidence as an individual to go ahead and cut guys off. I think they're starting to understand that, I mean, they do like to collectively push. And if you just work for this retake and set yourself up in more angles than what we've been seeing thus far, that you could maybe find yourself in a different result. Because we see the double stack towards B, which I like. You have the From the Shadows to make a rotation whenever necessary. You have the Hunter's Fury to disrupt a spike plant whenever that ends up going off. There is ideas being fleshed out, but we got to still see the execution whether or not this actually works. Because if anybody pushes up towards B, that could be a fight that kills either one of your big rotations almost immediately. But that's just not the case. You hear all the stomps going across the map. You see that it's more likely lighting it with the A site because that's right there towards your heaven, your hell, and your re-entry.
I must wait a moment.
But thankfully, you have a camera letting you know everything you need to, saying that Astral that you just got thrown up may have been for nothing, but it's not. Still, the push is coming through on C. You don't have the spike there with you, but you still got the space.
Yeah, you essentially bait the A site, but Alvin Divide is still really darn well placed to clear out the Fender spawn for C. And while it does dissipate eventually and Kasumi's able to take down IBM, that's a controller who, unlike Clove, cannot continue to place those smokes in the afterlife and find that value for the roster. You see Hunter's Fury coming forward. Send it off to default. Blink will now have the chance to get this down. While this isn't even 4 versus 4, Oklahoma have the chance for a retake, having been able to buy enough time for the team to step back on over. Clyde inside garage, just below window, maybe. Then gets caught off guard here. Do they see them? They don't, and this will be an easy one for Clyde as they rip the life out of Min's hands. And Clyde is able to step back away. If that neural theft was just a moment sooner, it may not have mattered. There's a second one cleared away in the retake. Sue's not standing a chance. Clever hit by a dangerous aftershock, but still dealt with by the gun. And Quack cannot solo the rest of the team. It is a 9-9 scoreline, and Kentucky Blue say the second half is a new Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for Kentucky here as well. I mean, going ahead, making sure to invest those ultimates, playing it safe, saying, look, we just have to guarantee this round by any means necessary. Rolling Thunder, go ahead, throw it out. Neural Theft is a backup. Go ahead, get it in there. But even then, that was more so on the side of Oklahoma. Invest in Neural Theft, investing the Hunter's Fury. I mean, both teams opting to just throw out whatever they can. But the problem is, Kentucky actually got something out of it. Oklahoma didn't find much. And Kentucky knew that even on the back end of that round, they were going to go into the next one having purchases available to them. So with nothing but this ISO to work with, and even you're in an island, so you can't really do much here. You're isolated. You still can even find one, but after that, it's not worth the ultimate. It's not worth the run. You know they're going to surround you. You do that same exact thing, hoping to catch players off on the C site on the attacking side. Here, it's just a completely different game where you're just doing nothing but killing yourself.
they're playing that maybe they get a single frag, they get two, then they use their ultimate, and it becomes a much harder round for Kentucky Blue. But Kasumi, uncharacteristic misses. What's going on? The Guardian is still high potential in your hand, but it doesn't pan out, and that's a desperate measure for a team that is typically calm and collected, and it's going to cost a lot of your ego heading into this next round, which has been proving to be a problem that's matriculating in favor of Kentucky Blue. Double digits is acquired for the first time in this map, and it is not Oklahoma, despite the dominant half they had 8-4. No, gate kept right at the gates of double digits. It's Kentucky who reached that 10 first.
I mean, this is that checkpoint chokehold kind of situation, but the problem is Oklahoma isn't getting choked up at double digits. So they may be cashing out a little bit early on that and just past that double-digit threshold with flying colors. We still have yet to really see that because this is going to be essentially kind of their last full buy round. Sure, they found themselves 1-12, but I mean, at that point, the mental's not really calling for the next map just yet. But looking at the resource, Kentucky's just kind of playing a little bit more slow. They're not over-investing things. They're just doing things that are a necessity. Things that are necessary to find themselves the wins. They're not using ultimates all willy-nilly. They're accumulating more over the course of this game, which realistically, I think one they could use right now would be maybe to give that Cypher spike, to get that plant off, and find yourself another to work with, but that's still to be told. As it stands right now, you know at least that they have the site. Retake 22 days, but how retake will decide is over and over again. Well, with an ISO ultimate, makes things a little bit easier, especially when Kazumi's hitting those shots once more.
Spike planted.
That's now making this a very manageable 3 versus 5. That trap wire plays very passively, hoping that they can play reactionary to it. It works out. Quite able to refrag. Kasumi's lost a life. You just need to play that player advantage and continuously refrag, but KJR, shockingly, despite being dazed, able to still find that kill. And Clever, who I was going to highlight, has been very, I won't say poor, but has not been highlighting themselves to the level that they need to be for this Oklahoma team. And it's very similar to what we had just last week against Auburn, where they were the bottom frag for the roster, and maybe Kasumi worrying about the, I wouldn't say trauma of that matchup being, you know, 16 kills above your secondary teammate, 16 being more kills than half your other teammates had at the end of that game.
Yeah, I mean, even then, though, I mean, you don't want to go to a map number 3 just because, I mean, you only have so much gas in the tank, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, sure, you can go after the entirety of the series, but not in a horrendous way. I mean, Kasumi definitely still had the highlight moments.
7 and 16.
Still, yeah.
He fell off hard. I mean, the backpack seams have to furl out at some point. Kasumi
you still have your opportunities, though. I mean, at that point, your teams have also picked the brains. They're saying, oh my God, we finally actually have to do something. And your team is there to be able to pick that up. This is Oklahoma. You would genuinely prefer Kasumi be the single lone wolf tearing through your team than all 4 other players able to recover and do that. I would rather fight 1 player than 4 every day of the week. So, I mean, this is the time when you actually, as Kentucky, need to be closing this thing out. Need to be getting things going, but you got to make sure to start off that 3rd map extremely hard because, sure, things are looking stressful here, but the beast only gets deadlier.
Yeah, and keep in mind that that map was Sunset, which we've already seen here, so it wouldn't even be a problem for Kasumi. And we saw how Oklahoma played so differently in map 1 compared to last week as a whole. So maybe something changes for Kasumi here because Kasumi, who's been a little slower in the second half, kind of similar to what they did last week, but still able to highlight and now giving space in those desperate positions inside Rabbit, trapped with all the utility coming their way to let the rest of the team leverage, which is what you're highlighting. Let this player stand out and give the rest of the team to showcase later. Let them stand out and also give their teammates a platform. That kind of result right there lets you leverage your other teammates' angles, lets them try to sacrifice, have this little sacrificial lamb that is Kasumi in that position, and give that much of aggression back in Kentucky's way, because that's 2 rounds in a row, something that has eluded them the last 6 that went Kentucky's way.
And even then, I mean, when you look at map number 1 in terms of last week, I mean, which was Bayern, we started off there. That wasn't a Kasumi showcase. That was still the entire team. I mean, it took them a while to really come online. But yeah, it was Min and Kasumi. They were just both doing their thing. It's exactly what we saw on Sunset, which we didn't really see last week too much. Everybody else was able to kind of go ahead and catch up. So when you consider that, okay, everybody else is starting to catch up here already, then you go to Bind, where Min and Kasumi are just going to kind of do their dynamic duo scenario again, where they can just split up, go as it's just a singular 2 players, and every couple rounds split themselves up and just do the hard carry while Kasumi goes onto his site solo and does that whole Trojan horse play again that we saw towards A on a couple rounds ago. Then, I mean, it gets to that point where, all right, what do we do? And at that point, I just don't know what you do.
No punches left.
One way we set up for Clyde. Cloudburst will dissipate. Maybe your chance to swing back aside, but the throw to the cage gives Suge just enough time to maybe set up for one kill and send out the neural theft. And there's the information you need for that Hunter's Fury. Qua trying to get the damage out, not really hitting where they wanted to, but Clever, despite being stunned by the Rolling Thunder, still swipes the life away from two. What is happening in the back of C? I'll tell you, it's Oklahoma stealing the potential of this round out from underneath them, as KJR can't hit either. In Hawaii, all alone, it was Spike in Oklahoma's loving defensive arms. What could you possibly do? I don't know, but Min's got the cross. You got two players back of sight. One, I'm sorry to break it to you, you may have to pray you get a Qua-level miracle stepping out of this round, and it just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, just sitting behind Radiant Knight, two players, not even disturbed. You got the guy watching towards garage, letting you know that, okay, now you can swing. I mean, it's just that point where there's just nothing you can really do. Smoked over and over and over again. You're a Cypher. You don't have any way to really break through that thing. And it's just unfortunate. It's unreal. And it's not unwinnable, but damn near feels like it. So seeing what else is going to happen here. I mean, Oklahoma being on not only map point, but that match point now. I talked about it. They were choked up at 9, but they cashed out early because they went ahead, gave all the rounds necessary for Kentucky, but now they're flying ahead by 2, and they're more than happy with what they're dealing with.
So he's very wary of that. Util being released by Kentucky. Really keep in mind, they used 4 ultimates to get this objective even slightly defended for Oklahoma that last round. They don't have those anymore, and it's going to be pure gone up for Suge. Able to secure one, can do so, but Kasumi can't. And now it's Oklahoma at a player disadvantage that just gets more dire. Juan with a flank wash. That means Kentucky Blue stepped up the site with only 4 and still thrashed the defense of Oklahoma on the site. Clyde's got garage window, and everyone that's left for Oklahoma is now coming in from defender spawn. And Qua, yeah, your life should be forfeit if Clyde has anything to say about it. Clyde, what is going on here? Thankfully, Juan nearby. But my goodness, Oklahoma not able to take it straight through. They'll have one more round to guarantee. If not, Kentucky go to OT.
Yeah, just seeing what's going on here. I mean, Kentucky obviously able to go ahead and wake up for one more, finding a bit of an actual fire to play with there for a second, but it's not hot enough to really go ahead and close things out, because keep in mind they had a 6-round spree earlier, and while they can't go ahead and answer back and bring this map into OT, it's just going to be that overtime, and that's the issue that we're going to run into, because Oklahoma, well, while they've already had a chance at overtime and didn't really take it in the same way that we were expecting, they do have a chance to go ahead and redeem themselves, especially in a more important round, because they've already knocked out Auburn. But as it stands right now, looking over towards the seaside, that's where Kentucky's eyes are set. They want to go ahead. They want to take the crowd. They want to take that chance offered to them. But Suge is going to go ahead and call Elise eventually for a Cypher cage. Go ahead and throw up that Joker. Find yourself a free little kill on the Clyde. Say, all right, what are they going to do for an approach now? Most people are dead. What's going to happen next? Well, I don't even think Kentucky really knows. And that's the biggest problem, because Oklahoma, they haven't budged. They saw the early players allocated towards A site. They've spread them out now somewhere else across the map, gotten themselves a more traditional kind of setup. And the issue is, while you have men on A site who's been warming up, who has to stay alive, you also got the breach support that's necessary to keep that guy alive if need be.
Where's your duelist? They were lopped off in the attempt down C long. You don't have the ability to close the gap here. A lot of weight's going to be on IBM's shoulder. The player we were highlighting earlier as being maybe the end-all be-all for Kentucky Blue in their agent selection. May not matter. Qua, ghost in hand, not able to take down Juan, but the intel is there for Min. And it's perfect. Execute them all one enemy. Oh my God. And it's a domain expansion for Kasumi to secure it to KJR.
Before we leave, right?
The trauma that was likely there for Kasumi, watching his team get to double digits, get stopped there for so long, be faltering like they did against Auburn, but stop them before OT was required. Probably such a weight off his shoulders, but Kentucky couldn't get it done on either map, and it's a 2-0 series completion for this Oklahoma roster.
I mean, to be expected. I mean, obviously coming into this thing, I was hoping for a bit of a wild card out of the Wildcats, hoping they could find themselves maybe a bit of a, once again, another upset situation. But I was only upset by the result. I mean, seeing how things were going, seeing Kentucky not really have that same kind of prowess I was expecting coming into this. I mean, this team, you cannot sleep on their accolades. You can't put all those laurels to rest and say, okay, look, this is what happened here. And, well, it doesn't matter because they lose right now. still, I think coming into playoffs, even in general, as I mentioned, they are just one of those teams that was happy to be here, happy to play, and they just got dealt a really bad hand at Oklahoma to start things out because this is a team that we're going to see start to hopefully evolve more and more over the course of the season. They had an outstanding matchup last week, which I feel like will really put the edge to the test because, I mean, that really felt, even though it was like 13-8s, 13-10s, and not really the closest thing in the world, it still was a close game. I mean, it's even in Street Fighter, we talk about, close 3-0s. It's like, well, you got swept. That's not close. No. There is different stories told not only in the maps, not only in the results, but also the round-to-round basis as well. Kentucky could have made this thing even that much closer if they had just won those single 1v1s. That 3v1 on Sunset found themselves so much more leniency on that second half to give them a chance to wake up. You never really know what's going to happen, but the unfortunate reality is they just didn't find those closure moments that they needed to really just find themselves some breathing room because against Oklahoma, you need that. Auburn created that over and over and over again. Sure, they found themselves a lead and they faltered it every here and there, and that's how I ended up losing the entire thing. But they at least created that breathing room for themselves to at least make it close towards the end, make it look interesting, and put Oklahoma in a stressful situation where they got to wake up.
We're on the Southeast. I can make a football reference. Last thing you want to do is face a team like Alabama off of a loss that should not have been a loss, right? You're saying, oh, I would be scared to be this team next week, right? That was always the saying for the last few years. I think for Oklahoma, that is not even a factor. It's not that you should be scared to be the next team. Yeah. It's that you got to be prepping to be that next team because Oklahoma is a team where they prove they're human. If they take losses like they did against Auburn and they show those glaring weaknesses, they're not just going to say, okay, let's try to fold out those losses and those mistakes. No, they let those mistakes create new strategies, burgeon new points of success, and they regrow like bones stronger than ever. They drank their milk here, folks. They're not letting it go out the way. They're not letting it get weaker. They grow stronger. We saw it on Sunset to an nth degree. Insane map from them. And we saw them finally start to figure it out right there towards the end when they started to have to use their final timeout in that second half to make up for the problems that were showing past round 13 when they started to lose that second. It just kept getting worse and worse for their side. But Oklahoma, you did it. You pulled away. You didn't have the trauma from last week, and you get to move on. And I can't say the same thing, unfortunately, for Kentucky Blue. You were the dark horse, the unsung hero, but unfortunately, you're going to have a whole lot more of a darkness in front of you because there's nothing left for you.
Yeah, I mean, even then, keep in mind these were all the LCQ qualifiers coming through. So I mean, we already know guaranteed who Oklahoma is facing next week, and that's Converse Purple. So I mean, this team's probably watching the game right now, saying, "All right, Kasumi, kill him, GG, it's wraps." And even then, last week, it kind of felt like that to a certain degree. I mean, when they slowed down, when you saw Kasumi couldn't really press the W button nearly as effectively as what we were seeing prior, and you just get all that breathing room as a team, and you're saying, all right, well, now they're just going to be sitting around for 30 seconds trying to think of what happens because usually Kasumi doesn't get killed like that. I think if there's any team that can go ahead and notice that glaring weakness and take advantage of those 30 seconds and probably pick off your entire team, I think any one of these top 4 seeds would be more than capable of doing that, especially the top 3. I mean, UGA, GMU, Converse. I mean, UCF, obviously, the academy team, not seriously a threat, but still good looking in their own regard. But the issue is, I mean, you get to a different league in that top 3. I mean, realistically, UCF, love what they've accomplished, but they just look like a good, like almost semi-pro team that, they change out players every year. They look good. They look like they can compete with the best. And they always had that middle range to them. But these top 3 look like seasoned squads to where they just don't really budge things around because the way they've been playing the game this season has been something different.
You hear that, Oklahoma? It's a squad. They're seasoned squads, not individuals with a couple people backpacking behind them. We know you can do it. We've seen every player stand out. Just get them all to do it in the exact same lobby at the exact same time. It's teams that fry together, win together. Let's see if Oklahoma can get it done next week. They're happy to move on, but that's all we have for you this week here for the SEL. My name's Infernos. Has been joined here by Mick. We've had our production crew in the booth alongside Bulby and Shaka, our prod. We're super happy to have you, and we'll see you guys next week with more action. Let's see who gets to move further on.